What is good, Mexit planners? Hey, join me today for my daily walk, something I do a couple times a week. And I just want to walk you through my neighborhood. So I live pretty much at the border of San Ramon Norte in the neighborhood of Emiliano Zapato Norte. And what's cool about this neighborhood is that it's super close to everything. Like, it is in the middle of what I would consider the north, right? So it has access to Avenida Comercio, it has access to Avenida Labano, as well as just, it's a couple miles from Alta Brisa, and it's only a few miles from Centro. So this is a little market here. So here we have like the local Expat. Buenos dias. You have your park. So here across the street we have the park, and that is a lot of stuff happens at this park, recreation, games on the weekends. But most neighborhoods in Mexico, you have a little park that is a part of the neighborhood. So we are now in Emiliano Zapato Norte. And this is a route that I walk pretty much every day. There's also, one of the cool things is there's a Guadalajara here, which is a Farmacia Guadalajara. And the Farmacia Guadalajaras, they are kind of like OXXO, where they're on every few blocks. There's actually like 3 really close to here. But that is, a mini super where you can get like small groceries, bread, eggs, things of that nature if you need it. But they're the only stores that are like 24/7, which is neat because not only do you have your pharmacy, but you also have your, necessities if you need them. So coming up on my right-hand side, Tienda El 3 de Mayo. And what's cool about this little tienda is that, I see people here buying all their meat every day, which is kind of neat. So over there, they have meat, they have vegetables, they have all sorts of things. But this neighborhood is very much a family-oriented neighborhood. I see literally the same people my neighbors speak most of the time. And, people walk, you can tell their routines. This has been my routine for the last 3-4 years in this area. Just walking this route for the most part. One of the pieces of advice I would give you when walking here in Mexico, particularly outside of Centro, if you're in Centro, stay on the sidewalks, but be careful. But outside of Centro is to walk in the street. Here's why, right? So if you look at these curbs, you can see that everybody's responsible for their own curb cut. And every few feet you'd be stepping up, stepping down, what have you. So walking the street, it's flat, it's a little safer, and I'm walking against traffic. So this particular street is, a one-way street, as most of them are here. And so I walk against traffic. The other thing you've heard me mention a lot is about finding a place to rent. Well, I found my house by walking this route, actually. I first saw it in March of, it's been over 2 years ago. So March of 21, walking to Manifesto Coffee. And when I came back in June, it was still on the market. So I called and got a view of the house, met the owner. And here I am almost 3 years later, just over 2 years later. We're in our 3rd year of our 4-year lease. Finding places that have for rent signs on them by owner is definitely the way to go. Like this house that we're coming up with the solar panels, it was for rent not too long ago. You can see the panels at the very top. It is not the 355A, but this other one. And I want to say it was going for like $35,000 a month with those panels. I have never seen this house on the back. I believe some Americans or Canadians rent at this house. I've seen them pull out of the driveway, but that's a beautiful house from the outside. To me, Emiliano Zapato Norte is one of those neighborhoods, a neighborhood that's in between two really popular areas. So it's in between Colonial Mexico, and if I walk over like one block, which I may do that today, haven't taken that route in a while, but if I walk over one block to my left, I'm in Colonial Mexico. And one block, well, my house starts the block of San Ramon Norte. So it's in between San Ramon Norte, which is a popular area, and Colonial Mexico. It's a pretty, I think that it's in a sweet spot because, you know, just a few blocks to my right, like 2 blocks literally from the street that I'm on right now, is Prolongation de Montejo. So one of the things you'll notice in Mexico is many people have dogs, either as pets or for security, but you hear them barking a lot. Speaking of, like, here's the intersection of Colonial Mexico and Emiliano Zapato Norte. So down that street here, 2 blocks that way, that is Prolongation de Montejo. And that way is Colonial Mexico. So we are walking through Emiliano Zapato Norte. And I think I've shown this in a short or in another video, but the way to know where you are in the city is by looking at the street signs. On the street signs, not only does it give you the street number, but it also tells you the colonia that you're in, or the neighborhood that you're in, which is hugely important here because this particular street that I'm walking on right now goes from 23 to 36 just by crossing over to a new neighborhood. So in Colonial Mexico, I believe it's 23rd Street, and in Emiliano Zapato, it's actually 34, 36. And I think I've shown that in another, I have a short that talks about how to find out where you're located. So there's the street sign there, and you can see we're in Emiliano Zapato Norte, and this is Calle 28, or Calle 28. Buenos días. This is a pretty popular cut-through street because there are no stop signs on this street, in this part of the street. So people generally drive way too fast down the street. But it is a street that you can kind of just move without having to worry about stopping. All the stop signs are on the cross streets to this street, on this part. Now, when you get to Colonial Mexico, that changes. There's a bunch of stop signs. This is my normal walk. Like I normally walk this a couple times a week in between cycling. So my fitness regime is pretty much 6 days a week. I cycle on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. I walk on Mondays. I generally run on Wednesdays, and I walk again on Friday. And on Sundays, I rest. All right, we're getting to the end of Emiliano Zapato Norte. And as you can see on this sign, that this is Calle 28 here. And as I shown in that video earlier, crossing the street of 41, we get to Colonial Mexico. And that sign says Calle 24. So this is Calle 24 in Colonial. It also changes the number to 11 from 41, which it was just 41. So now we're on 24. I absolutely love Colonial Mexico. Check out this house. This is so cool. Traditional style. But this is one of my favorite neighborhoods. Also, the streets just got like so much wider in Colonial Mexico. And the houses are just gorgeous. Like, I think, you know, if I ever buy property or a house here to build, it will be in Colonial Mexico. It's just a really cool neighborhood. And it has a pretty interesting history. I think in the 50s or 60s, most of these homes were built. And it was as, you know, the city was expanding, this was the suburbs, right? So many of the rich folks in Merida moved up north to Colonial Mexico. And so a lot of these homes, you'll see them, but they have like huge gardens, big pools. It is just an amazing neighborhood. And surprisingly, it's a very big neighborhood, but the architecture of some of these houses, it is really like they're traditional. You know, some have like nice front porches or nice facades, but then in the middle they have like these huge gardens, either in the middle or the back of the house. Like, these are some of the larger lots. But the first thing you notice is just how wide the streets are, right? Like, I think that's the thing that struck me the most. And then as I started just looking at the design of some of the houses, you know, it can't be beat. Colonial Mexico is also really one of the first colonials I would consider as the beginning of the north of Merida. It backs up to Colonial Mexico, connects to Eximna, which is kind of like the last neighborhood of Centro in my mind. And so if you keep straight on this street, on this street all the way out, it takes you to the department store Grand Chapur, which is kind of like a Macy's here. So you have Liverpool, which is a big brand. They're mostly inside of malls. And then you have Grand Chapurs that are also in malls, but they also have like a standalone store. Like, look at this house right here across the street. Actually, both of these. So a couple of things that you'll notice about some of these houses is you can tell by the wall. Like, I'm gonna walk by this house just so you can see the full house. But you can tell by how big the wall is. And you really can't see anything but the wall. I should walk on the opposite side of the street. But even the house across the street, like this house, it has a guard shack. But this house you can see. But the one I was trying to show you is over here. It's a corner lot. It has pretty much the entire block, or most of the block. And it goes all the way down to the other side of the street. So there's like two other houses, smaller houses. The house over here is being reconstructed. This house was for sale for forever. And it was only like $600,000, but someone apparently has recently purchased it because they're doing all sorts of construction on it and fixing it up. It needed a lot of work, but this lot is massive. But it was for sale for about $600,000. Now, this is a huge house. And it finally, I guess somebody finally sold. It was at least 3 years this house was on the market. But even like this little house here, I mean, you can see it has a nice wall. It's a corner lot. It's not really a little house. It's probably 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, but it's all one level. But here we are on Calle 19, and I'm just turning the corner. It's another great big old house. I'm just gonna walk on this side. Check this out. Like, this is an office, but it was probably a house at some point. But check out 112 on Calle 19. This house across the street. One level, corner lot. So all of that, from that red car all the way back to the corner, is a lot of this house. And it's just a big house. I mean, there are 3-4 cars in the driveway. It's a big property. And then across the street, you might have something like this that has just been abandoned, overgrown. But if you can find the owner for sale, knock it down, build something else. That's one of the things I've kind of learned here is the land is more important than the property or the structure itself. Construction prices have gone up apparently, but you can get the property and then build whatever you want. You'll see it's not uncommon to see someone will buy a house like that great big house that I showed you that was for sale for $600,000 a few months ago, or for a couple years actually. They're gutting that house. It looks like they've completely, they kept the structure, but for the most part, they're gutting it and redoing it. So that is not uncommon. All right, so we are now coming up to Avenida Jose Diaz Bolio. And Avenida Jose Diaz Bolio is a very popular street cross section. And here you can kind of see from the map. Let me pull this down. So if you look at that street sign, it tells you you're in Colonial Mexico. You're on Calle, or crossing Calle 21, which is Avenida Jose Diaz Bolio. And it is in the northeast quadrant of the city. And as the other thing that you can see is it's just north of the North Line. So that cross section is probably Eximna, which puts you down more towards Centro. All right, let me cross the street, not get ran over. So this is a major street in town. It goes pretty far east-west. So OXXO, if you guys haven't seen or heard about OXXOs yet, OXXOs are like your 7-Elevens or convenience stores. We actually have 7-Eleven here, but OXXO is a major player in the convenience store game in Mexico. They are a billion-dollar company for sure, but they do so much more than just have drinks and chips and that kind of thing. You can pay your bills. You can put money on people's cards. I mean, OXXOs it's kind of frustrating at times because you go into an OXXO and everybody's doing all sorts of other transactions besides paying for, snacks. You just want to grab a water, but you got to wait 30 minutes for people to put minutes on their cell phone or pay their electrical bill or whatever, right? So here's a great example. Here's a huge corner lot with an abandoned home. I'm not sure who owns it or what it is, but man, that would be a sweet spot to build a house in Colonial Mexico. One of my favorite homes in this neighborhood is coming up, and it's this house on the right-hand side over here, over there. I love this big wraparound porch. Plus, look how big the lot is. Like, that's a pretty sizable lot. And it's one of the few homes you can actually see kind of the house, right? It is a corner lot, several levels. Looks like they have like a basement. Huge doorway. It's like huge doorway going into this house. And this sweet wraparound porch. I like a lot of those elements. But, the advice that I would give to anybody looking to rent here in Mexico is to walk the neighborhoods that you like, right? And the reason why I say walk, or even drive, but walking is obviously you get to check out things a little better. But if you just cruise through the neighborhoods, you will find a lot of signs that are for rent by owner, and that's where the best deals are going to be had. If you go to a website and find something that gives you prices in English you already know you're in for a treat. That is not going to be the best price. So finding homes that have for rent signs on them, you know, that is the way to go, right? That is how you're going to find. And a lot of times these homes will have realtors attached to them. I mean, even when I rented my house, I called the number and it was a realtor. I actually had 2 realtors. I like this greenhouse too, across the street. Very, very nice. And they also maintain it so well. They recently just repainted this house, and the house beside it is also dope. I bet you this house beside it is kind of like traditional on the outside, but I bet you it's completely modern on the inside. Like, many people come here and they think Centro because they've seen a lot of the colonials, which are nice, but they're attached. They're in Centro. There's just lots of, you know, noise and movement happening. Here in the north and in Colonial Mexico, super quiet. Now this building that we're rolling up on, this giant wall, was once somebody's house, but now it is a security or an insurance agency. So this is like the offices of an insurance agency. We're approaching Avenida Libano, which it's interesting. There's a huge population of Lebanese here and have been for a really long time. They are probably some of the wealthiest folks in Merida. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I would guess that perhaps maybe they own the casinos here as well. Both of the casinos, or 2 of the casinos, are on Avenida Libano. Those casinos are just in front of the Libano Club. They also have a school. And it's kind of like a really close community right there off of Avenida Libano. So that's all speculation by me, but just kind of observing what's around and what's over there. That would be my guess. All right, so we've just crossed over Avenida Libano. We're approaching Manifesto Coffee over here to my right. And that's where we will end this part of the video at Manifesto, my happy place. So thanks for joining me on my walk this morning. I normally do this and think about like all the stuff that I have to do for the day. So it's cool having you guys join me. But before I go, here's a house across from Manifesto Coffee. Now, it's a corner lot. It's directly across and it's for sale. But I want to show you this sign just so you can see what I'm talking about. And I may actually call this number just to see what they're talking about, right? I'm going to take a video of it just so you guys can see. So this is a house that's for sale. It's on the corner. Doesn't appear to be a huge lot, but it could be deceiving. And a couple of things that I would get from this information right here. 1, it's for sale. 2, it says trade direct. 3, there is an immobiliario that's associated with this, so a real estate agent, and it's bhouseinmobiliario.net. Now, whether they have a website or not is yet to be seen, but you could call that number, WhatsApp that number, and kind of get the details of what's going on with this house. And if I had to guess, I would say that the lot probably ends at this great big old wall. So it's just that corner adjacent to Manifesto Coffee. Manifesto Coffee, believe it or not, this was a house, like, and they built their coffee shop here. It has a pool, has everything, but it was the house on the corner in Colonial Mexico that they converted into a coffee shop. And this is my happy place. So here we are at Manifesto. Straight ahead where those lights are flashing down there, that is the immigration building. So if you are a migrant of Mexico, you will spend some time there to renew your residency and that kind of thing. But here we are at Manifesto, and they're now starting to get their pond back together. And one of the things I love about Manifesto is I'm kind of like Norm here. Hola, buenos días.